And so good afternoon to everyone. Once again, this is Lori Collier from Schoology. This is session number 2 of our Schoology for Master Instructors. And just a quick review of what we covered on day 1. We did get through our welcome and navigating section. We did get into working with courses, and we did that student experience, had everybody turn in some work to me since I am your instructor. And then we did turn that around and we started to build the course structure. We got into folder structure, putting in those folders with pictures. And that's kind of where we ended. We kind of got you just barely started. And so we are going to get into files, links, and pages, probably discussions. We're going to do little bit of, we'll kind of have to start a little bit around grading just before we do discussions. And so we're just going to keep right on going and get through as many different items as we can. So make sure you are logged into your Schoology account, and I am going to navigate over to my sandbox course. We've had a few more people popping in here at the very end here. So hopefully we're catching everybody. Okay, I just wanted to double check. I'm pretty sure we stopped right at folders. And so we're going to start with files, links, and then we are going to move into pages. And so that's where we start to do some of the different interactive items, putting links and pictures on a page, and just kind of doing some different things. So you have your folders, and I think the easiest thing for people is pick a folder that you want to work inside of. That way we're not back and forth and trying to go back into the folder. If you're just working inside of a single folder, it kind of packages all of your things in one spot, and it just makes it easier for you. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick the first folder down on my list. When you are inside of a folder, yes, you can have more folders inside of folders. So it does allow you to do some organization that way. You don't want to get too many folders deep. It makes it hard for our students to find what they're looking for. So a couple of folders is okay. If you get too deep, let's take a look at what you've got going on. So, but just think about how you want your things organized. What would be easy for you if you were inside of someone's course? Go ahead and click that Add Materials button. You're going to see that Add Folder, but we've already done that. We are going to go down to Add File Link. So let's go down to Add File Link. The first one we're going to do is File. And so what that's going to do is it does allow you to bring items in that you are storing on the hard drive on your device, or maybe even from a network drive that you have from your organization. So I'm going to go ahead and do Add File. This is very similar to uploading that picture that we did the other day. And we're going to click Attach Files, giving me access to my hard drive. And I just need to get to the right spot. You don't have to upload too many items, but try out a couple things. I actually store just some training documents that I use. But for example, I'm going to bring in my syllabus for one of my courses. I have an attendance policy. I'm going to scroll down here, grading policy. Got a research paper outline my students use. So it doesn't have to be anything specific. I'm just grabbing a few items that I might use. There's also other ways I can embed items and do some different things, but really, if you have some of those, especially those housekeeping items that I mentioned the other day, those grading policies or student handbooks, a lot of times those are already converted to electronic format. you can just bring those on in. I've highlighted a few items. I'm going to click open, and they're going to start to upload. So I have a variety of things here. I've got a couple of Word documents, a couple of PDFs. I didn't bring in any JPEGs, but I could have. I could have brought in a slide deck, a spreadsheet, so quite the variety of things that I can upload. And I'm going to go ahead and click Add. So now that I've got this small stack of stuff here, ahead and click the Materials button over on the left. Because what I did was I brought everything into one folder, but I really need to move it around. And I want to show you how to do that. So I put everything into a single folder, and I'm on my main materials page. So I had clicked the Materials button on the left, and I'm kind of looking at that home page of my Sandbox course. There's little arrows next to each folder. If I click that arrow, it'll open the folder, and it's going to show me what's housed inside of there. So I have this little laundry list of stuff that I brought in, but really a lot of those items need to go into other folders. What are my options? You can click the gear icon, and you could move it from one folder to another, or click and hold the icon. Don't click the name of the file, but click and hold the icon, and it lets you grab it. And you can drag it around and move it up into the other folder. So here's what I'm going to tell you. Drag and drop is great. It is one of the hardest skills for me to teach people over the web or in person. You have to get the feel for clicking and holding the icon, dragging it and getting it underneath the folder. Because if you're too far to the left and let go, it just stuck it out there on my main materials page. I'm trying to tuck it under the folder name so it's housed inside of the folder. All I can say to you, you will get it. Sometimes it takes a little bit. It is, you know, the drag and drop is great, but truly you just have to get the feel for it. And sometimes that's just what happens. I will tell you, this is one of the hardest skills. The rest of it you learn as you build your items. But this is, to me, this is an actual it's a skill. How do you do it? And how do I make it happen? And click and hold the icon and drag it. So I'm just moving my items around, trying to get them cleaned up a little bit. They're not in the right folders. Now, could I have gone into the right folder and imported those into the correct folder? Absolutely. And that'd be my recommendation. But then I wouldn't get to show you how to drag and drop. So kind of had to force you into learning the drag and drop feature. All right. So hopefully you've moved your little items around, cleaned that up a little bit. Questions about files. Files are generally standalone items. If you looked at what I brought in, things like the attendance policy, the syllabus, the handbook, there's really no instruction that goes along with that. It's just an item that my student needs access to. When we get into assignments, I'll show you how to attach an item to an assignment so that you're packaging the assignment with the document that maybe the student needs. So we'll get there. So really think about these files as standalone items, because there's no way for a student to take one of these items and turn it into you. It has to be attached to an assignment if you intend to collect it as student work. So these are resources, housekeeping items, as I like to call them. just general course information. But when you get into, I need to collect student work, that's where the assignment comes in, and you can attach what you need to the assignment. So it's packaged all together. All right. Always watching that chat window in case you guys have questions. I'm going to go back into my astronomy folder. That's the one I've been using to put things into. And I moved all those files out that I brought in, so now mine is empty. We're going to click that Add Materials button again, and we're going to go down to Add File Link. And we already did File, so now we're going to do Link. And what this does, it allows you to bring in a link for the students. They can click on it, and it will either open in Schoology, or when they click on it, it will send them out to a website outside of Schoology. So even if you have it housed in Schoology, it's still somebody else's website, but it might be sitting inside of the Schoology platform. I'm going to show you both, and we're going to talk a little bit about why sometimes it doesn't work. So we'll get through all of that. So let's start with, I clicked on Add Materials and Add File Link and picked the link. I'm going to go get a web address, and I'm going to paste it in here. I do tend to use the same ones over and over again. If you have websites that maybe you use with your students or websites that you send them to, those are great ideas to utilize right now. I am going to use the NASA website, and I'm also going to use PBS Kids. So for us, that's public broadcasting. So the two websites I use. So I'm going to open up 2 additional tabs, and I'm going to get those websites up and running because I'm going to have to be able to copy and paste those web addresses. So I'm just kind of preparing my extra tabs that I'm going to need so that I'm ready to go. Let me turn my volume down because this PBS Kids one often makes noise. There we go. Don't need any extra noise. I'm going to start with the NASA one. And again, you're welcome to try other websites. You don't have to just use the ones I'm mentioning. I'm looking at the home page of NASA. I can copy that web link and use it over inside of Schoology. So I'm going to simply copy, highlight, and copy that web address. So you can use your keyboard shortcuts, so the Control-C once you've highlighted it, or I still use a mouse and I right-click. So even if you have the trackpad, you've got the right and the left little buttons there, you can right-click and you can copy that web address. Once you have that web address copied to your computer clipboard, let's go back over to Schoology. And we're going to click in the box where it says link URL, and we're going to paste that in. Now, there's a box right below it that says title. I can click those little green arrows. What does that do? Schoology kind of sends out a signal to that website, and it pulls back the title that's associated with that website. Or I could type in that box. Either way works. Before you click the Add button, right across the bottom, there's some little icons. The green circle means it's published. My students will be able to see it and click on it. Right next to publish, to the left, is a little piece of paper with some blue letters. It is small, I know. If I leave it, if I hover over it, it says it's going to display in Schoology. That sounds like what I want. I want this website to display in Schoology. I'm going to click the Add button. So I've added my link. I want to double check it. I do want to make sure it's right. So I'm going to click the NASA link. And I get this gray box with a frowny face. Well, that is really, that's not a happy symbol. What happened? I'm going to keep it super simple. Not every website out there will display inside of Schoology. Schoology isn't broken, and the website isn't broken. It has to do with how websites talk to each other. Schoology is a secure server website. You have to log in with a username and password. There's lots of those websites out there. There's other ones that you just type in the address, you go to it, and you can see all kinds of information. NASA, for example. It's not that NASA doesn't have a secure server, it's just you don't have to log in to get to the info. So how do I fix this? I want my students to be able to look at this. Well, in some cases, it's just not going to display inside of Schoology. You didn't break it, nobody broke it. It's just not going to work. And it doesn't work because of something called Internet Protocol. Secure servers, like Schoology, like to talk to other secure websites. Things with a password. When I try to have a secure server, Schoology, talk to something that I'm going to call non-secure, but really doesn't have a password, they don't talk real nice to each other, and it just doesn't display well. It's all right. Go ahead, click your folder name. It's up at the top. We're just going to fix this. And we're going to click the gear icon and edit our NASA link, or in my case, my NASA link. And I'm going to turn off the little piece of paper with the blue letters, and it's all going to be all gray. And I'm going to click Save Changes. Now I'm going to click my NASA link, and it simply opens in another tab. Well, that works for me. It's not, I don't have to worry about that frowny face, gray box that makes us feel like we did something wrong. You didn't. It's just some things are going to do that. So here's what I tell everybody. Try it. See if it'll display in Schoology. If it doesn't, turn it off and just let the students go out to that other website. All right, we're going to do this whole process again, but I'm going to use a different website. So this time, let me close these couple extra tabs. I have my PBS Kids website up, and I'm going to highlight that web address and copy it. And then I'm going to go back over to Schoology. Same process again. Add materials, add link. I'm going to click on link, and I'm going to paste my web address in. Click those green arrows to pull that title. And I'm going to try it. I'm going to leave the little piece of paper on with the blue letters, display in Schoology. And I'm going to click Add. And I'm going to check this one. There it is. It loaded inside of Schoology. There is a little sign-in link there, so that is probably a good indication that this is on a secure server. My students would have to have accounts to be able to log in to PBS Kids. So you have to check them. You have to try it. If it doesn't work, it's okay. Just turn off that display in Schoology button and let the students click on it, and it'll take them out to the website. If you need the information, you need it. Don't let it stop you just because it doesn't display in Schoology. Questions about that? I think my underlying thing I always tell people is you have to test it. You have to try it out. And I also like to make sure people understand nothing's broken. You didn't do anything wrong. Nothing is broken. It's just how things work. So sometimes that's hard for people, that, you know what, it's just what it does. So, all right, always watching that chat window if you have questions. Now, the other thing
Where's the
question?
Where's the display in Schoology button again, please?
Yes, so when you add a link, or even if I click the gear icon, there is a little piece of paper that has blue letters on it that says display in Schoology.
Okay,
and
yes,
it is kind of small.
Yes,
yep, it's kind of small.
Thank
it's
you.
very small.
Thank you.
I'm going to circle it. And so you do have to, that is on. So when the blue letters are showing, it means it's on. So it's going to display in Schoology. If I click the button and the letters are gray, it's going to display in a new window, and that's how I got that new tab to open. So, and if you forget, it's okay. Just click the gear icon and change it. So once you create something, don't think, oh, I forgot to turn that off, I have to redo it. No, you click the gear icon and edit, and you make the appropriate change that you need to. So don't remake your stuff, just make the adjustments that you need to. All right. The other thing I want to say about these, you're welcome. The other thing about the links, they're in here by themselves. They're kind of standalone. And what are my students supposed to do with those? So it's not horrible to do this, but let's talk about Schoology Pages and how I can use those and use links with my Schoology Pages, because that might be a better way to go. All right, so we're going to click Add Materials, Add Page. Schoology Pages are informational. There's nothing here to grade. There is nothing here to collect student work through. I'm going to use this to further instruct my students. So it can be used in a variety of different ways, but think about it as a place to put some of those multimedia items that students interact with, things that you are using to enhance your instruction. It could be a place where you are putting maybe your presentation information for students. So in class, you know, we do have instruction time. I try not to use the word lecture, but instruction time. And I have a slide deck that I need to bring up. Well, why do I need to store that someplace else? I could put it here on a page, and then I have access, and so do my students. My Master Instructor course that you joined on day number 1, my agenda and my slide deck, they are in my course. Yeah, they're stored in my Google Drive. They're in my course so that I don't have to go other places to find those pieces of information. Give me just a second. Okay, sorry. Neighborhood kids come into play. All right, so pages. I was talking about the items I use for training. I store them in my courses. I don't want to go looking multiple places. Where's the agenda? Where's the slide deck? No, I store it in my course, streamlining everything I need to do and storing those items in one spot. Pages are for the students and pages are for the instructor. So what can I put on my pages? Well, let's think about things for my students. I give them a lot of different ways to get homework help. I've got some different links that they're able to use. I could package those and put them in one spot. And I can arrange them on a page so that they're able to find the different pieces of information that they need. So we're going to use our page as a place for links for our students to go get help with different ideas and concepts. So I'm going to open up a few extra tabs on my browser, and I'm going to go search for a couple of different things that I need for my students. So if you are the math teacher, do you have websites that you send your students to for extra math help? What if they need to know how to solve certain formulas? You help them, you teach them, but sometimes they need more help. Where do you send them to do that? My students are struggling with, sentence structure and how things are supposed to flow within a sentence. Where can I send them to learn more about that? What about history and some research? Where can I send them for those items? So whatever it is that you teach, think about where you might send your students. We're going to open up a couple of internet tabs because we're going to need those web addresses. We are going to make a homework help page for our students. So open up a couple tabs. I worked for a science grant, so you guys are stuck with my science examples. And so I know that we do some different things, and I need, for us here in the States, the U.S. Geological Survey, they deal with things like earthquakes, plate tectonics, tsunami warnings, things around rocks, geology, all of those things. So I'm going to open up that location because I'm going to need that. I'm going to grab that NASA website again because we're going to, in my science class, we have some things around space, planets, black holes, comets, meteors. Where would my students go to learn more about those items? I'm going to send them to NASA. And then finally, for my chemistry unit, the Royal Society of Chemistry, I'm going to need that web address. You are welcome to just pull up a couple different ones. You can use the same ones I'm throwing out as ideas. But if you have ones that you are accustomed to using, please use those. It doesn't matter which web address you pull up. It's going to be the process of how does this work. All right, so I've got my tabs open. I'm going back to Schoology. I have my page. We had opened it, but we didn't do anything with it. We're going to give it a title. So this is Homework Help Links. And I have this description line. It's my rich text editor line. It starts with bold, italic, underline. You are going to see this description line, the rich text editor line. You're going to see this on pages, discussions, and assignments. So everything I show you here applies to discussions and assignments. So when I show you how to make a table and insert a link, it's going to work the same way on discussions and assignments. You already know how to bring in pictures. Insert content. You clicked that little box with the arrow in it. So you already know one thing that you can do. You could bring in a picture. Well, what else can we do? So that's kind of where we're going next. We're going to just start to layer the ideas and expand your knowledge. So I've put my homework help link title up there at the top. I'm going to click in that large white open space under the rich text editor line. and just next to the Insert Content button. So I'm on the Rich Text Editor line. 3/4 of the way over is Insert Content. Go one more, Table, and click the drop-down arrow. Tables allow you to keep things lined up and organized nice and neat. It's not that you have to use them, it's just I like to make sure people can see how it helps things to line up. So if you like things in columns, it's a great way to make it work, and it makes it really easy. So I'm going to click my table icon, and I'm going to make just a simple 2x2 table. And I can stretch that out by clicking on one of the little circles and dragging that table and expanding it. Everything you know about tables applies here. You have some icons. You can insert rows above and below. I can delete a row. I can insert more columns on either side. You don't have to know exactly what size this table needs to be when you first start. That's why I usually just start with a 2x2 and I expand it as necessary. All right, so we can click in every cell and type in there. So my first cell in the upper left-hand corner, this is my title and description area. And then the next cell over is going to be the homework help link. I can highlight those items and I can make them bold if I want them to stand out a little bit more. So you start to format and make things look pretty. I have clicked in the cell right below title and description, and I'm going to type in a little bit of information. So in my class, we do this unit on astronomy. So I'm going to basically tell them for astronomy, if they need assistance for anything space related, here's a web link. So if they need help or information on planets, black holes, comets, meteors, the list goes on and on. They need to check out the NASA website. So I have another box over there where the link is going to go. I need that link. I'm going to go to one of the tabs that I opened in my browser. There's my NASA website. I am once again going to highlight that address and copy it and go back to Schoology. And in the box under the title where it says homework help link, put your cursor in that box so it's blinking and you can see it. Then we're going to click the Insert Content button. So we used Insert Content to bring in pictures. Look right below where it says Image. It says Link. So Insert Link. We're going to paste in the web address. This one works a little bit differently than the one I just showed you. You have to type in the title. So type in the title and press Insert. What just happened? What we just did was we inserted a hyperlink into our table. Just like when you are on the internet and you are reading an article and there's a blue clickable link, what happens? If you click that link, it's going to take you someplace else. That is what you just created. We're going to do this 2 more times. So if you didn't catch it the first time, it's okay. I've got 2 more that I'm prepared to do, and I can do more if you need me to. However, I don't have enough rows on my table. So I'm going to use my table line up here, and I'm going to insert a couple more rows. And I'm going to put in, yes.
Just as you're doing that, when you use the insert content, your drop-down options are image, media, link, symbol, all of that. It also has an additional drop-down for the Google Drive and all of that. I do not have that. Is there a way that that's supposed to be enabled on some devices? I have a Mac, so I don't know if it's.
No, right now it is not supposed to be enabled for you. So I have two columns because I have installed, I have a Google Drive, I have a OneDrive. Those things are installed for me, and so I have access to them. Right now, that's not something that's installed for you guys, so you will not have access to those.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. So I'm typing in my next little description here. So just a little description of why my students might need to go to the U.S. Geological Survey. So for earthquakes, and then I'm going to click in the box for the homework help link, and I'm going to do this whole process again. I do start going a little bit faster, so hopefully you're sticking with me. I'm going over to the tab I have open for the U.S. Geological Survey. I'm going to highlight that address. I'm going to copy that address and go back to Schoology. I'm in the box under homework help link, insert content, link. I'm going to paste in my web address, and I'm going to go, so it's just for me, the USGS, and picked up something, a little bit of extra data there. So I cleared that out. We'll check these here in a minute. I have one more. So chemical reactions. And yeah, I ended up with extra data in there from copying and pasting. All my copying and pasting is catching up to me. All right, I need to go get my last website, so the Royal Society of Chemistry. I'm going to grab that web address, copy it, go back to Schoology, insert link, drop in my web address, put my title in, and click insert. Now, if you try clicking on them, they're not going to go anywhere. It's all right. We're going to scroll down, and we're going to click create. I want to see what all that looks like. Click the title of your page called Homework Help Links. And let me close all my tabs. Now they are blue clickable links. When I put my cursor over it, I do get that little pointer finger option, and all of my links are taking my students to the websites and get extra help. How do we do? Did you hopefully get at least one, maybe two or three, completed, and they are working for you? So you can see, and this is why I use the NASA one more than one time. The NASA one worked fine before. It was out, but it was standalone. Why did my students need it? They're going to see that link and they're going to start questioning, well, Mrs. Collier, why do I need this NASA link? What is it for? What am I supposed to use it for? Well, now they know. So when we do our unit on astronomy, you might need that link to NASA. So here you go. I've already supplied it to you. It has context. It has information. Maybe I need that website for part of my instructional time. Well, yeah, I could type it in. I use it often enough. I know the web address. But what if it's something I don't use that often? I don't want to have to go search for it and find it. So this is one example of a page, just one. So let me, I've got some other examples. So make sure you're looking at my screen because I have a whole bunch. They were not in your training course, but let me show them to you. So make sure you're looking at the webinar screen. You don't need to leave your sandbox, but just make sure you're looking at me. And some of these are going to look familiar, just that homework help page, because I use that one a lot. But these are different examples. These are all pages inside of Schoology, so they all have the same icon. But when I open them, they're each going to look a little bit different. So make sure you're looking at my screen. I'm going to go back. I'm in a completely different course. There are my descriptions and my links to the websites. The next one, because I do have a Google Drive, I was able to embed my slide deck into a page. So I could bring this up in class. I can make it full size, and we can all through our sight words together. Plus, at home, if mice have a device or you have the app on your phone, students would be able to see this when they're not in class, so they could practice. Another example, if you use outside tools, things like Padlet, Answer Garden, that's a Schoology page. Informational. So Padlet, I can have my students do table work, and they can report back on what their table was doing, and we can just put it on a Padlet. I could use it as a quick way just to collect info. What did you do over summer break? We used it in one of my trainings the other day of how would you use Schoology portfolios, or how do you think you're going to use Schoology portfolios? And people were putting their ideas on the Padlet. It's a way to quickly collect ideas and information. I can embed it onto a Schoology page. Here's my approved reading list. This is not quite identical to what we just did, but similar. Table, columns and rows. They inserted pictures inside of their table. So here's the approved reading list for the book report. The book report is an assignment. You're going to read your book, and then you're going to turn your assignment in with your book report. But here's the approved list. So I could have my reading list. What if you have a summer reading list? There you go. The upside down art. There's actually a little video embedded, and there's a picture embedded. But in art class, we're actually going to stick some paper underneath the bottom of our tables. We're all going to lay on our backs, and we're all going to paint a picture, just like Michelangelo did. And so applying kind of, the principles of what he did to what we're doing here. And so we just put that information on a page so our students could see it. Parent resources. So we're probably a little bit ways away from parents being in Schoology, but a welcome message, information about the teacher. How can you as a parent help your kids at home? Here's some videos. All of these are Schoology pages. I think I got one last one here. It has a slide deck of vocabulary words and a Google map. So it's not to, I'm not showing you all of these to overwhelm you. I'm showing them to you so you can see what you can do. All right? So I'm going to navigate back over to my Sandbox course. And I had a question. Yes.
The question is, can you actually use snippet or snip, sorry, to actually snip a picture from, I guess, the Microsoft Word or the internet and snip it into any of these?
You can drag and drop images in. They tend to work better if you use the insert content button. So if you took a snippet of something, which is really just a JPEG, you're going to use the insert content button to insert that item in so that it is truly embedded into the Schoology page or into the discussion or into the assignment. That would be my recommended method. It's not that you can't drag and drop, but sometimes there's excess data, metadata that's in the background, and so sometimes things don't always work out and you end up having to redo it. So I'm a bigger fan of just save it as a JPEG and use the insert content button.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I had a question in the window about the links. We're going to do some other links when we do discussion, so you will see that process again when we get over there. I'm going to get back into my folder. I do want to show you, and it's not so much that I think you have to use Padlet. It's more I want to show you how you find the different embed codes. So how did I do all of that embedding? Because you do want to make sure that it gets into Schoology properly so that it functions and works for you and your students. So you just want to make sure that you're doing those items. So let's open up another page. So add materials, add page. And if you don't have a Padlet account, don't worry. I'm going to show this to you. It is something that it's free, but you can set up an account later. What I'm really after is how do you find embed codes to be able to do these different things? Excuse me. So I'm going to open up another tab and I'm going to go out to Padlet. So if you use Padlet or Answer Garden, even like Google Maps, I'm going to scroll down. I already have some Padlets made. Padlet gives you 12 free Padlets. I do think there's a paid version, but I'm not paying. So I'm using ones I already have, and you can all delete them and create new ones. But I'm going to open up one of my Padlets. What's important about embedding? It's knowing the code. It's knowing what are to be able to copy and paste and then bring it over to Schoology. That's really what I'm looking for. So this is one of those, there's no perfect answer. I'm looking at Padlet. How do I get this from here over to Schoology? Up across the top, things that you look for to find the embed code. When it says share, When I see a gear icon or I see the 3 little dots, that means there's more underneath these 3 little dots and I should click on them. So in this case, I know it's under share. So when I click share, I'm going to scroll down. I can get a link. A link is just going to give my students something to click on and take them someplace else. No, I want embed. I want it to be in Schoology, inside of Schoology. You see the little greater than and less than symbols? That's what you're looking for, the embed code. So in my case, I'm going to click on embed. Please do not let this scare you. You get all this HTML code, not a big deal. Scroll past it. I click copy. Here's the hard part. It's not the same on every tool. It's in a different spot on Answer Garden. It's in a different spot on YouTube. It's in a different spot on Google Maps. That's the problem. Maybe if it's too much, pick one tool. Maybe Padlet is not right for you. Maybe Answer Garden is right for you. Pick one tool. If you look at this and go, this is great, I'm going to go find them all, please do. If you look at this and go, okay, she said HTML and I can't do that. Yes, you can, but pick one tool. Don't pick them all. All right, so I'm going to copy my HTML code. I'm going back to Schoology. Insert content. It is where all the fun stuff happens. So insert content. We're going to the very first item, image media. Now, let's remember, upload media and attach file. That was my JPEGs off of my hard drive. There's another. It says from the web. The first option is image. Well, we are not uploading an image. We are trying to upload media, something that's interactive for our students. There's a second link here. That is where that big long code that I copied, I am simply just going to paste it on in there. The key here is it says link embed. If it just has link, you have to make sure you've switched it to media, and we're going to insert. The thing I like about Padlet is if I scroll down, it tells me at the bottom, made with Padlet. You also get a feeling that you did something wrong. You didn't. That yellow box is supposed to be there. You can't see your Padlet until you click create. And there's my Padlet. It's a matter of where do you find the embed code? It truly is in different spots. This actually, it used to be gear icon, then they moved it. So let me do, I'll just pull up Google Maps quick. There you guys are. I want to share, I want to embed this map. The word share. If I click on share, I get embed a map. And I can copy the HTML. It's in a different spot. It's okay, but it's in a different spot. Well, now that I copied it, I might as well put it on a page. So if my students were researching countries, I would be able to give them, I could supply them like with a little folder of some different maps. So we're going to do add page. This is really just in case you missed it the first time. Insert content, image media. We switch this to from the web, go to media, and we're going to paste that code in there and insert. Now, Google Map doesn't give you that nice little indicator at the bottom, but that's okay. We'll click Create. And there's my map. It's embedded in Schoology. You don't have to use them all right now. You can kind of pick and choose. Personally, I think the ones where, you know, that approved book list, the homework help, those are probably the ones that you want to start with. And then eventually you might move on to the other ones. But I want you to see what you could do, even if you're not quite ready for it. All right, we're going to move to discussions. We have another full hour left. This one takes a while, but it's okay because everything I just showed you applies to discussions and assignments. But we'll do a couple more together so that you can kind of see that process again. All right. Before we do discussions, we do need to get some grading items set up. And so over on the far left of your Sandbox course, click on Grade Setup. Schoology has to have a category in order to calculate a grade. And your student information system is PowerSchool. We like to make those categories match. It just makes life easier when Grade Passback gets turned on. So if you are accustomed to using certain categories, or you have information around everybody's supposed to use the same categories, that's what we want to create. So in the middle section at the very top, there's an Add button. Click that Add button. And we're going to make just a couple categories. What I find, you know, everybody uses slightly different categories, but they typically will use things like projects. I'm going to type that in and click Create. I'm going to add another category. Maybe they use coursework or homework, things that my students, just the general stuff that my students have to do in class. And then maybe our assessments, so things like test or quiz, but those would really kind of fall under the bucket of assessments. And we're going to click Create. So you're going to have those different categories. You can have as many categories as you need, but Schoology has to have at least one. When we start talking about Grade Passback, and that's kind of a further down the road conversation, but just to kind of lay the groundwork, you basically take the categories that you use in PowerSchool and you match them up to the categories that you have in Schoology. So if in PowerSchool I had a category called Test Quiz, but in Schoology I made my category and I named it Assessment, is that really the same category? It probably is. And I would say that Test Quiz matches up to Assessment. If I have a homework category in PowerSchool, but I made coursework in Schoology, I would map those two to each other. So we're not quite ready to do mapping, and we're not quite ready to match those items up, but it's just one of those conversations you kind of have to put in the back of your head, because it's probably going to come up here over the summer. But for now, for today, you do need to be in these categories, create a couple, The other thing that you want to do is click one of the stars. It's going to pick a default category for you. Whenever you create a gradable item, discussions, assignments, or assessments, those are all gradable, it has to be in a category. So by starring one of these categories, Schoology will use that category automatically. You can always change your mind. There's a drop-down list and you can always change it. But if most of what you create falls under coursework, then star that category because that's the one you're going to use most often. On the far right, scales and rubrics. We're really just dealing with scales here today. Schoology comes to you with a numeric scale. There's probably an A+ minus scale. You can push out a district-wide scale. That's what's on my screen. I have some scales that have locks. What that means is if all of my elementary teachers or primary teachers are supposed to be using the same scale, I can push that out. If all of my secondary teachers are supposed to be using a certain scale, I can create it and push it out. So it means your teachers don't have to do that on their own. We can push the scale out to them. Then they star that scale. So for today, star the numeric scale. We're in a sandbox, so these are okay things to do. Grading periods, these will come over from your student information system. We're going to scroll down. You got a whole bunch of check boxes. Just because you have check boxes does not mean you have to check them all. They will do different things. So we have thousands of clients, and everybody likes to calculate grades their own way. These check boxes allow for variety so that we can handle different grading methods for different clients. I would say the ones that people use most often. So do we want our students to see the grade report in Schoology? I have that on. Do I need a course override column or a grading period column? Sometimes those are on. The rest of them, probably nothing that you need to worry about right now. We're going to scroll down and we're going to click Save Changes. All right. Now we are ready to build gradable items, but we had to have this done because you need categories to be able to do gradable items. So in your sandbox course, click on Materials over on the far left, and we're just going to navigate back into your folder that we've been using. So whichever folder you've been building in, that's the perfect place to be. All right. We're going to do a discussion. So add materials, add discussion. The discussion that I had you guys do was the one around the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And if you think about it, there was a picture on the left, there was text on the right, and there were links in that text. Very almost identical to what we just did with the homework help, but this time we're going to bring in a picture and we're going to put a little extra text with our link. We're going to put it into a sentence with some other stuff, so it's not standing out there by itself. So if you missed doing links on the homework help page, this is almost identical. So we are going to do, and you, again, I always remind you, make something that works for you, or you can make exactly what I am making. But CNN does a 10-minute current event video every day. And it's been one of the things that my son's been doing while he's been at home since school went to online. So the CNN 10 video, and today is Thursday. So that's the title of my discussion. Discussions, keep in mind and don't forget, they're student facing. That means when we put that question out there and my students respond to it, they're going to see each other's responses. This is not a place for a private conversation. Discussions, I expect my students to answer the questions. If I expect them to ask questions of each other, you would have to tell. Do not assume that they're going to know that's what you want them to do. So, you know, my younger students, and my son's in 5th grade, he answers the questions, but they're not really asking each other questions. But as I get into upper grades, I would probably have my students doing maybe some comparing and contrasting. They might offer up their opinion on something, and then students can ask them questions about that. So that discussion becomes very interactive. For today, we're just doing the students are going to watch a video and they're going to answer some questions. So I've put my title in. I do need to go grab my video or my web link. So I'm going to do my CNN 10. So I opened up another browser tab. There's my CNN 10 for today. And since I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and just copy that web address. It copies it to my clipboard, so it'll sit there until I'm ready for it. And I'm going back over to Schoology. I want to do a little picture and a little bit of text. So I need a table so that those two things line up nice and neat. And I really just need a little 2x1 table. 1 row, 2 columns. I should say 2 columns, 1 row, since it's a 2x1. I'm clicked in the first cell over on the left. I'm going to insert a picture. So just going back to day number 1, insert image. I'm doing that a little faster than usual because we've been doing that. My picture came in kind of big, so I can click on it, and I'm going to size that guy down. Okay, that's pretty good. And then I'm going to click in the cell over on the right, so I'm in the other column. So I'm going to tell my students to watch today's CNN 10 video. Then answer the following questions. 3 things you learned. 2 things you have questions about. And they need to write those in question form. And then finally, 1 thing that surprised you. So truly, these are just examples. You know, these are not things that you have to do in your classroom. This is more, how did I do the table? How did I get the picture? How do I get the link in here? So my link, highlight the text that you want to be the blue clickable link. We're going to go up to Insert Content, Link. And we're going to simply paste that link in there. Insert. There's my blue clickable link. Almost exactly the same way we did it for the homework help page, except here, it's couched in the text. It's not standing by itself. On the homework help page, the text was in its own column, and then the link was standalone. But my students knew why they had the link. Here, I'm telling my students, watch today's, click this link, CNN 10 video. And so it is put right into the context of the discussion question. All right. We can make our text a little bit bigger with our rich text editor line. We're going to scroll down. Oh, I see the categories. Philip, had you told me, I could have used those. I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to confuse anybody on the categories. All right. So for discussions, we're going to drop in our due date. So that due date, that's how it gets on today's calendar, or on the course calendar. So you pick a due date, and then we're going to check the box for enable grading. Remember, I starred coursework, or if you used one of your other categories and you start it, that's what's going to show up. You can always change that. There's that drop down. You can change the grading period, but it will fill in the grading period for you. So whatever the grading period is that you're sitting in, that's what's going to pop up. I know you guys didn't have exact grading periods going on just yet, and so don't worry about the grading period. It'll populate the way it's supposed to. And then I had you star that numeric scale, and that's what is showing. Why might I not grade? Well, I use discussions for all of you. You did that introductory discussion. Maybe I don't grade that. I did a session the other day on portfolios, and share the portfolio link. We used a discussion. No reason to grade that. So there's different reasons why you might not grade something, and this just gives you the option. At the very bottom, before you click create, there's that little green circle for publish. That means your item is published. Your students will be able to see this discussion. And right next to it, to the right, there's a little person. He's grayed out, or she's grayed out. I can't tell. The picture's really little. And they have like a little stoplight next to them. I'm going to click that button. When you turn that little icon to a color, and you can see the stoplight colors, hover over it. Require members to post before revealing other responses. What does that mean? It means when my students come in and they see this discussion and they type in their answer, they cannot see anybody else's responses until they click post. So that way they're not looking at the other answers and just giving me the exact same answer. So it forces them to answer the question, and then once they click post, then they can see everybody else's. So I'm going to leave that on, and we're going to click create. Now, this was a discussion. The icon is different. It's going to have a little different look and feel. So click the title that says CNN 10 Video Thursday. There's my box with my picture in it, my clickable link. And when I scroll down, there's the comment box. So that's where my students will start to put in their comments. Their picture will be there, and they can click in that box and start to respond. So the upper portion looked very much like my homework help page, but it had the gradable piece. And when I save it and open it, it does look just a little bit different than the page. Not a whole lot. If you wanted to embed a map on here, you could. If I wanted to put my slide deck on here, I could. All of those things that I showed you, we've done a table again. We've done the clickable link again. We've inserted a picture. You can mix and match whatever you want. All right. questions about inserting links, inserting pictures, doing the table, pages, or discussions. We're going to move on to assignments. But questions about those, we kind of packaged all those together, kind of did them as a chunk. Okay. You're going to stay inside of your folder. So at the very top, you're going to see your folder name. Just click that folder name. Would students be able to respond to discussions by attaching files? Yes. So when they click in that box that says comment, they could type in the box. They can attach a file. They could attach a picture. They can attach a link. There's a microphone that they could record their response or video response. So yes is the simple answer, but they could do all of those, probably not all at the same time. So if they attached a document or a file to that discussion response, everybody's going to be able to see it. So just keep that in mind, because discussions are student facing. An assignment, which is where we're going next, is strictly between the teacher and the student. So quite often that's where they're going to attach a file that the students or the teacher is going to be able to view. But they could, let's say you wanted the students to, instead of watching that CNN 10 video, I want them to go out and find a link for a current event. And I want to kind of narrow it down. I want something, you know, let's just go with international sports related. I want a current event around that. I know the Olympics have been moved back a year, but what about something about the Olympics? They could go find a link and they could answer a couple questions and then attach their link. So you could do different things. You know, if we're doing coverage of a hurricane, what can they go find about that and attach a link? So just, you can mix and match it together, but just keep in mind discussions are student facing and everybody's going to be able to see all the responses and anything that's attached. All right. We're going to do assignments. And we're going to try some new stuff. Everything you already know and have learned still applies, but we're not going to use, we're going to use a couple, but we're not going to use that insert content button, believe it or not. So we're going to click Add Materials, Add Assignment. The top portion, still the same. And we are going to give our assignment a title. Now think about your assignments. What is it that you collect from your students? It's anything from a journal entry to a research project to a poster. All of those different things, you start to convert them to electronic format. And you'd be surprised what you can convert to electronic format and what you can have your students do electronically and turn in. Now, sometimes there are things that need to be done on paper, but I still want to make an assignment for it so that it has a due date and so I can grade it. And this is going to be kind of a combination of, I think, all of those items. It gives me a great example to talk about different things you can do with assignments, but it gives you a good visual of what those things look like. So give me just a second. I cheat. I have my other screen open and let me see if I can. I don't know if I put that in your course or not. Let me look. Nope. I like to copy and paste. It has a lot of information in it, and it's so much quicker if I copy and paste instead of typing things up. So that's really all I'm doing is getting this document open so I can copy and paste my information. All right, now I've got it. There we go. So my students are going to research a scientist. They could be researching any other famous person. You know, I'm picking scientists, but it could be astronauts. It could be war generals. It could be prime ministers. The list goes on and on. I'm going with scientists. So my students are each going to be assigned a scientist. They're going to do research on that individual, and then they're going to make a wanted poster. So we are going to make our famous scientist wanted poster. I'm going to be honest. This actual assignment came out of Schoology Public Resources. Some other educator came up with this, turned it into a Schoology assignment, and posted it in our public resources. And I mentioned to you how I go there and look for training ideas. This is one of them. And I love it because it lets me do a lot of different things. I've put in my title and I've typed in my huge description, which actually there's quite a bit here. So I did copy and paste. With assignments, you have to think about the instructions. If you are accustomed to giving all the instructions in class and you put this assignment out there and there's hardly anything in it, what about the students that need to reread the instructions? What about the student that was absent? It's the details, it's the description. All of that information needs to go in that description box. So the one that I have here, it has a list of requirements. The poster must be 8.5 by 11. It must have an image, picture of our scientist. It must include their first, middle, and last name, birth date and year, what country were they born in, why are they famous. There's quite the list here. You know, that might have been on a slide that I popped up on the screen and my students all had to copy it down. Well, here it's all just typed in the description of the assignment. My students can reference it at any point in time. So rather than just attach the file or the image that I had, I just copied and pasted it right here. So my students can always open it and read it. Now, if I tell my students to be creative and I want them to make this poster, I get these questions like, but what do you want it to look like? Well, I want you to be creative and make this poster, but I don't know what you want it to look like. So I'm going to actually give them a couple of examples. Now, I know we used that rich text editor line in the insert content, but look across the bottom. I have a couple little icons down here. At the bottom of my description box, there's an icon for file. This allows me to attach items to my assignment. And this is where I'm going to attach my samples. So I'm going to click File. It's going to give me access to my hard drive. And I'm going to go grab my sample posters. Now, you might be questioning, well, why didn't you use insert content and just put the pictures in? I could have. But the thing with that is then they're stuck a certain size. If I attach my JPEGs as a file, they'll actually open up full size and my students will have a better view of the items. So I'll show it to you when I'm done, but that is why I chose to do it this way. We spent a lot of time using the insert content button and inserting links. But there is actually another place to put links. Across the bottom of my description box, and right next to where the word file is, there's the link. And I'm going to click link. This is just yet another way to link information. But in this case, it's going to link it and attach it to the assignment. So let me get my links open. So I need my famous scientists, because there's a website for that. I mean, there's a website for everything, isn't there? And I'm also doing famous inventors because, you know, they kind of fall in the same bucket in some regards. So I'm just going to grab my web addresses. So this is, we're all experts at that right now. And we're going to go back to Schoology. I'm going to paste the address in, pull the title, and attach it. And I'm going to do this one more time. The link across the bottom. Grab my address, paste that in, and pull the title. Now, you might be questioning again, and I'm okay with that because I hope you are, why didn't you use insert content? I will show you once we're done, okay? We're going to scroll down. I've added my description. I've got 2 pictures here that are going to show my students what I expect them to do. I've got 2 links here that they can use. I'm going to give it a due date. How many points is it worth? My category, my grading period, all that stuff. And we're going to click create. And I'm going to open up my assignment. There's my description. It's nice and long. There's a timeline for my students. There's my images. So instead of them being in the description area, I can actually click on those and they're full size. And I can toggle from one to the other. 2 completely different posters. I'm going to click out of here in that grayish box on the outside. And then I've got my 2 links down there at the bottom. So why, let me get these other tabs closed. There we go. So why did I do it this way? Could I have used insert content? I absolutely could have. When I did the CNN 10 video, we did that on the discussion. That was a requirement. That video was required. I said, please watch this video. And I put in the link and it was couched in the description. Please watch the CNN 10 video for today. Click on it, watch it, answer these questions. Here, you're going to make a poster and you need to research your scientist. I don't care what website you use. I'm providing you with options. They're not required. I could have 6 more links down there so that they had more places to go to. They're optional. They're resources. They are the extra pieces that my students need to complete their poster. But depending on which scientist you're assigned, you might not need the inventors link. You might only need the famous scientist link. They're optional. They're resources for my students to utilize. It's just a different way to give information to my students. I could have done them as insert content link, and it would have been fine. And if that's what you are more comfortable with, then please do it that way. If you like it's kind of attached and it's optional, and these are extra resources, and you like that description, then you tell your students that. It's no different than those homework help links. I could have done an astronomy assignment and said, if you need more information to help you understand meteors and comets, here's the NASA link. And I could have attached it to the bottom of an assignment. We did an assignment on plate tectonics. Do you need to better understand plate tectonics? Here's a link to the U.S. Geological Survey. I could have attached it. I chose to make a homework help page instead and put everything in one spot. It's the options. It's the flexibility. And I don't want you to think there's only one way to do it. There's not. So what works for you in your classroom might be very different than the next person down the hallway. What works for my elementary teachers is extraordinarily different than what is working for my high school math teacher. That's why there's the flexibility. And you look at it and go, oh, there's so many options. There are. Pick which ones you like. Pick the ones that work for you. And then, you know what? In 6 months, try out something new. You don't have to do all of it at one time. I also refer to this assignment as a student choice assignment, because when my students go to turn this in, that submit button is going to be over there on the far right. And you guys did that the other day. You submitted work to me as a student. My students have a choice. The poster must be on 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Now, I could tweak that. The poster must be 8.5 by 11. What does that mean? It means it has to be a certain size. But I'm going to have some students, they might go into Google Draw and make their poster there. I might have some other students that go into a Microsoft PowerPoint and use a single slide, size it, and make their poster there. I might have somebody that has art software at home, and they make their poster that way and turn it into a JPEG. I might have a student that actually makes their poster on paper, and they cut and paste it all together, and they bring me the poster. Are all of those acceptable ways for those students to turn in that assignment? For me, they are. I said your poster has to be 8.5 by 11. I didn't say it had to be electronic. So student choice, how do they want to turn that item in? And you can give them all of those options. Or you could say to them, we're all going to make them on paper. You're going to bring it in and we're going to hang them up around the classroom. Also an option. Think about what you're already doing with your students. You don't have to change everything, but how do I make it electronic? And by that, I mean, how do I make the instructions in such a way that my students will understand? And how do I add the extra pieces that they need to further their instruction and for them to better understand? I attach files. I insert pictures. I attach links. I embed different items. Sometimes you need all of those, and sometimes I just need you to do your journal entry, and there's no bells and whistles. All right, this is the only part I don't like about you guys not being in the same room, because you can't bounce ideas off of each other, and you can't really say, yes, I understand what you're saying, or no, I'm completely lost. So I normally only do one assignment. I'm always happy to do more examples, but I wanted to see how you're feeling about, I can always go backwards, discussions and assignments. Is it giving you enough information to look at what you have currently and how you can start to make those changes and modifications? I am kind of watching the chat window, hoping for a few yeses or nos. Okay, so we're going to add one little piece to this, just one. I'm going to scroll up and I'm going to click the gear icon on my poster assignment. Click that gear icon and I'm going to click edit. And I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. At the very bottom, there is that little green circle for published to students. And right next to it on the left is a little brown box with a green arrow on it. If I hover over that, it says submissions are enabled. That's how you electronically collect student work. That's what you guys did with me the other day. You turned in files to me or you uploaded something. But what if I click that little box? And I hover over it. Submissions are disabled. Well, that means I can't collect my students' work. Well, that is what that means, but let me click Save Changes. I'm going to scroll up. The box is gone on the right. My students can no longer electronically submit their assignment to me. Actually, that's not bad, because sometimes there's nothing for them to turn in. If this poster was supposed to be made, and it's kind of in combination with my art teacher, they're helping me do this. We're researching, that's part of my English language arts. They're scientists, so we're learning about the scientists and what they have discovered. And then my art teacher is helping us make the posters. And we're going to create them in art class and we're going to hang them up. There's nothing to submit. Nothing. But I still have to grade it. There's a little box up here that says Edit Grades. So you can turn off the submit feature because sometimes there's nothing to collect. It's a three-dimensional object that we're building in math class. It's a poster. It's a science fair project. It's a presentation in my public speaking class. It's my elementary students practicing their handwriting and their letters. I have to score it, but there's nothing to collect. This is how you do that. I'm the art, music, or PE teacher. Lots of observed grades going on in art, music, and PE. This is how you handle that. So you can turn that little submit button off. I'm going to click on my gear icon and edit, just so you can see it one more time. It was down here at the bottom. So submissions is always on from the teacher perspective. You have to physically click the button to turn it off, but sometimes you want to. And I rattled off just a few examples. So it lends itself to the flexibility that you need for your youngest students as well as your high school students. All right. The only thing we have left to build is assessments. And I need to kind of, let me reload my page. I've been on my other screen doing other stuff, and so it changes my account settings. So let me get in there. I just need to remind myself if we did, I know I gave you guys exploration time. Did we do assessments together? I think we just let you kind of do that on your own. Okay, looks like I just let you guys do that on your own. So what I want to do is, I do want to kind of, all of us go through assessment together and take a look at some of the options and not start to build one today because we're not going to get done. We would be partway through and we'd have to stop in the middle. So I think our best bet is to kind of review what's available and understand some of the options. That'll close out our time together today. And then when we start up next week, we'll start with assessment. We'll build just a couple questions, and then we'll do grading, and then we'll do that overview of groups and resources. So the easiest thing to do for all of you is go ahead and click on the logo in the upper left-hand corner. And when you click that logo, that's where you find all of your courses. So I have all these different tiles, tons and tons of tiles as I scroll down. This is where the courses that you teach, you're going to have a tile for each one of those. You've got a tile right now for the Master Instructor course that everybody joined. You have a tile for your Sandbox course that was either, that you guys spun off the other day. So you might struggle to find your courses because you can't find the right tile. You can reorder these. So if you click and hold the picture, it will let you reorder those. So that's one way to make your life easier, get those pictures where you want them. So for me, for training, I put you guys at the top. So I have my Master Instructor course and then my Sandbox course right next to it. And I'm going to scroll down. It is possible that you had maybe you had some courses and things are kind of in a different order. If you simply click and hold on the picture, you can drag those up to the top and reorder. That's one way. The other way is at the top, click on courses. And when you click on courses, you only see the first 12 tiles. And so if you had more than 12 classes, that could be why maybe you can't find something. Go over to My Courses on the far right. Reorder. You can also reorder from here. So if something's all the way at the bottom, I can click and hold and I can drag it up towards the top. So just a couple ways to customize and reorder your courses. So if you were having trouble finding anything, you can reorder your items. But for now, especially that Master Instructor course that I dropped you in, it might be further down on your list. And that was really where it's where I need you to go. But I wanted to show you why it might not be the very first tile at the top. And just as a reminder what that looked like, it has a little globe as the icon and a couple little hands. All right. So what we really want to do is I really just kind of want to do a little preview and overview of assessment together, and then we'll build a little bit of those on our next session. So in our Master Instructor course, scroll down, and we're going down to the red folder that says Student Experience Course Materials. And inside of there is a yellow folder that says Assessment Examples. There are some resources here for you for future reference, but that orange folder has lots of samples in there. Just on the surface, before we even open one of these, the Soil Study Guide. This is actually an ungraded item. It is designed for my students to study for their upcoming test. So it has different questions on it that might show up on the test, might not, but it lets my students practice over and over again the different information. So this is a great way to maybe take your old math questions and put them into an assessment. It's ungraded, and my students can just practice some of those different math problems. If I have some old questions from, you know, like a history or social studies, and I would be able to put those questions in. If you were, do I have anybody that's not in the Master Instructor course? Because you would need my code. I can drop that back in the, put that in the chat window. All right. So that soil study guide is in there. There's one for reading practice, but really the one I want to open and just preview is the enhanced question samples. You're welcome to take this because it'll give you that student experience. But as the teacher, I can preview my assessment. And what I like about that is it allows me to bring these different question types up and talk to my students about them. I might build a sample assessment. Some of these question types might be brand new. They might be brand new to you, and they might be things that your students have never seen. What you don't want is to create an assessment and use, this is Highlight Hotspot that's up on my screen. You don't want to use Highlight Hotspot and your students don't know how to answer the question because of the question type. That's the last thing you want. So the preview allows me to, I can create some fun questions and pull this up and show it to my students and say, okay, this is a Highlight Hotspot question. You read the question, and when you go to answer it, you click on the hotspot to pick your answer. So showing your students how it works. For me, I'm using preview to show you how it works. Navigation for our questions is across the bottom. There is highlight image, so my students can draw on the image. What I like about this one, I do this one with graph paper sometimes, and my graph paper uploads as the image, and then my students plot the dots and the letters on the graph paper. Now, because of this is the state of Nevada that's missing here, but that's actually white space. So my students could color that in, but had I made this bigger, this space over here on the right, this, my students cannot draw in. I'm doing that with my webinar pencil. But had I made the picture bigger and actually left white space over there, they could have been drawing in that space. So think about that. I actually uploaded this from, I did like a Google Draw and sized by image before I uploaded it. So you can really tweak some of these and get kind of sophisticated if you want to. The other thing about this question type that I love, it will show what your students draw on the image. So if you guys take this assessment, this is the enhanced question samples, there's a play button on this question type and I can see your keystrokes. So imagine if my students did plot the dots or it was a formula that they had to write out, I'd be able to see what they were doing because there's a play button. One of my favorite features. Label image. This particular question type, when there's extra answers, eliminate answer choices. My students can come down and eliminate if there's something they know they don't need. So you teach your students to cross out the ones they don't need. Well, this is what that does. So now my student can't use that as an answer. Some of these I actually do know. And what really cracks me up is I'm the one that wrote this question and then can't remember the answers. So I try. I really do. And I'm pretty sure that one's there. I could be completely wrong, so don't follow. The next question type is called highlight text. And my ELA teachers always like this one. In the following sentence, select the action verb. You can highlight the words in the sentences. So you can either have your students highlight individual words, full sentences, or full paragraphs. So the question type is called highlight text. There is math short answer, and it gives you formulas, our favorite. So my students could actually make a formula as part of their answer. And there's actually 15 different keyboard options that show up over here on the right. So this one is a basic and then an algebra keyboard. There's geometry, calculus, Greek letters, lots of options for the keyboards. So number line, so you drag the appropriate individuals' names up to the number line. So it's not just a math question type. And then finally, there is a chart option. All right, not always the right answers. The other thing that's going down the side here, I had that eliminate answer choice, flag for review, so my students can flag a question for review. I'm going to close out of my preview because if you are in there, if I have anybody in there, I actually can see who's in progress, how much time have they spent. Let me see what my live progress is doing. So it tells me lots of people haven't started. That's okay. So if any of my students were in there, this would update and I would be able to see extra information. So current item, how much time have they spent? How many items did they flag for review? So just some different things that you can see as the assessments are happening with your students. So we will build just a small little assessment during our next session. We will grade everything and take a look at how to grade student work. And then finally, we will do that overview of groups and resources. But I definitely didn't want to start assessments. We did not have enough time. And I hate to stop halfway through. So I'd rather do it start to finish all in one sitting. All right. Questions to wrap up for today? Anything that you have questions about that we didn't already answer?
I have a question about not stuff that we did today, but something from the last session. A couple teachers were asking me about creating, because not everybody in the session is a classroom teacher. So
okay.
there's people that they're education officers and trainers and stuff like that. So they wanted to know about creating courses as a PD, like professional development for other teachers. But I wasn't sure about that because you said I should turn that feature off once we finish the training. So
correct. So you're going to have to decide, it's really a communication thing for you and your teachers to say to them, teachers, your courses come over. And if you're missing your Algebra 1 Section 2 course, don't create it. You have to go talk to central scheduling. But if you have people that need to make courses for PD and we really don't want them to all have to filter through you and then you create the course, do turn that back on. But you need a consistent message for your teachers whenever you guys do training that says that they will never create their own courses that students would be in, that those always come over from the student information system. It's just the
Okay.
messaging to make sure
But
you're consistent. So you
one
can
thing-
turn that back on so
One
that
thing-
people
well,
could
one
make
thing I
courses
was-
for PD.
One thing I was thinking about was creating an additional role that allows people to, like, specific people to create a course. Would that?
Yes,
that
that
work?
is your other option.
Okay.
You could, let's say you duplicate the teacher role, for example,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
then you call that tech integration specialist. So name it, and then you give them more access than what a teacher would have. So the teacher, that checkbox would be off, but for tech integration specialist or education officer, that box would be on, and then
Okay.
they'd be able to create the courses they need. So
Right.
yes,
Cool.
you can do that. It's just everybody likes to kind of handle those things differently.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's also a great option.
Okay. That was
Okay.
it for me. I don't know if anybody else has.
I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
From if Schoology is populating its data from Power School, if I am correct, education officers are not even listed in Power School because we're not school-based staff. We're Department of Education staff. How would that apply in this instance as well? The same thing that you're just talking about, Phil, because it's not going to populate us in Schoology if we're not even in Power School.
No, I have to. So what happens is, for the majority of the people in Schoology are either students or teachers. So pull all them over. For those that do not have a class in Power School, I had to manually create your accounts. So you'll still have that account. I just have to make it. Like if we hired a math, like somebody outside the system to be like the math education officer, I would have to make their account.
Okay, thank you for clarification on
And
that.
learning support teachers, if I see somebody ask about learning support teachers, if you have a class at all assigned to you in Power School, even if it's just one student, then you will have an account created automatically.
Yeah, because para educators are not in Power School either.
No, paraeducators won't be either. So I have to make them. Okay, Ms. Murdoch, I can check on that for you. Just send me an email to remind me about that, please, and I can look at that for you.
Would there I'm sorry. Would there be also and I don't know if this training is where it will be covered, but how would we as education officers be able to create or pick up teachers as our students? How do we do that?
So that's no different than what I did with all of you. I created my master instructor course. You guys logged into your Schoology account. So your teachers would already have their account and they'd be logged into Schoology. You give them the code to the course that you created, just like I did master instructor.
Okay.
I gave you this code. This is really a professional development course. It's
Right,
just I'm
that's right.
teaching you how to use Schoology. Same concept. It's just
Okay.
you're going to be teaching a different topic. You just give them the access code and then they're your student, just like you guys are my students.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's so easy that you're like, wait, can it really be that easy? But it is. So, yeah, I get it. I mean, we're at the end of day number 2. You've had 4 hours of training. It's just you kind of have to really, once you start using the system, it just becomes second nature. All right. Well, thank you all so much. We got a lot of work done today, once again. And so we are together. I don't have my calendar up. I think it's next Tuesday. Whatever it is, it's on my calendar. I will be here and we will finish out your session together. So you are welcome to keep practicing. Yep, sorry.
No, it's all right. Don't leave yet. I have to give you the the form to fill out, the survey to fill out. Just put in the chat. It's a new date for today, so just click today's date. And I also added your individual schools in there. If you don't see your school, 1 second, just check Department of Education. I just added it in there, and you should see it in there now. All right, so just fill that out. If you didn't get the chance to fill it out for the first session, then just submit it twice. You'll have to fill it out twice, once for each day. All right, that's it for me. Thank you, Lori.
All right. Thank you guys very much. You guys have a wonderful afternoon. We'll see you next week. Bye.